Kia ora, my name is Craig Murray, and you've tuned into the Small Business and Entrepreneur Festival podcast delivered to you by DHL. Today, we have got a New Zealand entrepreneurial legend on, Ryan Saunders, the founder of Haka Tours. Started way back in 2007. Looking forward to this conversation. So, without further ado, Ryan, kia ora. How you going, man?
Kia ora, buddy. I'm well, mate. How are you?
I'm very good. I'm hosting this podcast from the not so sunny today at Rotorua in the centre of the North Island. Whereabouts are you?
Auckland, and it's the not so sunny Auckland. It's been pretty humid this weekend, but the rain's come in, and yeah, it's a nice inside day. So it's great to be doing this.
So I'd like to start our podcast with the same question as I ask everyone, which is, in the next couple of minutes, if you could let our audience learn a little bit about you. So I always ask, what was your first ever job? And I'm talking like pocket money job, or it could be working at McDonald's or whatever that might have been. And then if you could just roll into your sort of professional career origin job and how you even got the Haka Tour idea in your mind and made it into what it is now. So I'll hand it over to you.
Cool. Hey, so my first ever job, well, actually, to be honest, we live quite close to a golf course. It was just down the end of the street. Grew up in North Beach, Christchurch. I lived on Effingham Street. At the very end of the road, there was this big golf course. And I think from the age of about 6 or 7, used to go foraging for golf balls and then sell them back to the golfers. And our target was actually to make $20 by midday. And that was quite a lot of money as a kid. And I was hugely into playing spaceys down a local fish and chip shop. So we just used to go hard in the morning. And yeah, find as many golf balls as we could, sell them back, and then just spend the afternoon playing spaceys and buying some hot chips.
Playing some Street Fighter 2, was it, or something like that?
Oh, look, POW, 1942, yep, Street Fighter, and all the old school games in the 90s.
Funny you should say that, but I just remembered that I used to do that as well, because I was brought up in Rotorua, and there's a golf course down here called Ariki Kapakapa. And then there's a hole where everyone hits the ball into, and it's like a mud lake. So we'd get into our wetsuits and then just roll around and get hundreds and hundreds of golf balls.
We did the same. Put our wetsuits on, and we'll just feel the mud bottom for your foot. Often you have to go at night to do that. So I was doing that a little bit later because they had like patrols and stuff. So
it was frowned upon, yeah.
I could get like 200 golf balls. It was great.
Yeah, we used to sell it back to the pro, and then he'd sell them.
Yeah, nice.
Anyway, there's the synergy. There you go. And so now you are where you are now. How did you get there?
So I basically was moved to the UK, was working in a corporate role for a big bank, which I just wasn't super inspired by. Things were going well. I was getting promoted quite regularly and, was getting paid a good sum, but I didn't wake up in the morning and feel really inspired. At that stage, I'd traveled around 40 or 50 different countries. I've always loved adventure travel. And basically, I just looked internally, and I knew the only way that I was going to be really passionate about something if I followed, what I really enjoyed, and that was travel. And even within the bank, because I was getting promoted and I was getting more responsibility, I really did struggle with the lack of autonomy. And it's no matter how far up the chain I went, I always felt constrained. And so for me, I just knew I had to start my own business. And so combining the two, starting my own business and travel, I just started writing a business plan for what would become Haka Tours on my OE back in the UK in 2006. And then we launched in 2007, going direct to the consumer online through an e-commerce website, which is quite rare at that time for tourism.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the people, still went through the traditional channels of agencies and wholesalers. Kept in this well-paid corporate role until March 2008. So we launched June 2007. And then in March, I had enough confidence that I had something here, relocated back home, moved in with mum and dad. I hadn't lived with my parents since I was 19, 20. So moving back in as a 29-year-old 10 years later was pretty humbling. But I just put my head down, bum up, and just worked really hard for the next couple of years. I'd never worked in tourism before. Had never started my own business. It's all part of that journey. So just use those first couple of years just to smash out some really long hours, live at home, and just really focus on understanding, being an entrepreneur, understanding tourism and getting things moving.
So if I was to summarize what you just said, you had a side hustle basically from 2007 and for almost 2 years before you actually went all in, and had the confidence to say, well, this is actually going to sustain.
It was just under a year. 2007, we started in June, and I relocated back home May 2008. Well, April, May, so just under a year.
And then you moved into home. Yeah.
Yeah. One of the big things I've learned is cutting off your cash flow too early is a really big challenge. And I know there's a lot of people that have a lot of, if you haven't started your first business, you're really motivated and you're good to go. I would really strongly recommend keeping it as a side hustle until you've built it up to a certain level. Because actually looking back on my journey, my budgets and my forecasts and the money I'd saved, it was so out of whack of what the reality was. And if I didn't have that reasonably well-paying job there to support me, it actually would have been game over way earlier. Should have been. There's big stats out there around 80% of businesses failing within 2 years. I'm not too sure if that's still the current stat, but it's ultimately coming down to cash flow. And so from my experience, if I just talk about me personally, keeping it as a side hustle for just that first year, having the extra money coming through was just a godsend, because otherwise, it would have been game over within 12 months.
Awesome. So now we're in 2021, almost rolling into 2022. So the business is reasonably mature now, and it's gone through some highs and lows. One, like at the moment, it's probably been pretty tricky, especially since March 2020. What things have you done differently from March to now than what you never even thought you'd even consider doing before March last year?
Well, we're on a high growth journey since we started. So, actually, no, the first couple of years were pretty quiet, pretty slow going. But we've been a business that's always been profitable since day one. We've been growing. We've just been a growth journey. It's been, 100% in, non-stop, reinvesting all the funds back into the business, and also being privately owned. So all of the 9 businesses which sit within Haka Tourism Group have just been owned by myself, apart from our educational brand. I've got a co-founder on that one. So one of the changes that we have done since COVID hit is really looking for a partner. And it's quite interesting. When I was writing my business plan back in 2006 for what would become Haka Tours, core to that was coming up with a competitor analysis and understanding who was doing what within the landscape. And I really detailed 5 aspirational businesses that I really loved. And one of those was actually Intrepid. They were doing amazing things back then. Sustainability has always been a really core part of what they did. And they did some really cool small group trips, which has always been key to what we did. And so they were part of our initial aspirational list of 5 businesses that I looked at and went, wow, they are bloody cool. I'd love to be like them one day. So to cut a long story short, since March 2020, we were privately owned just by myself. And we brought on a capital partner, or more than a capital partner, a true partner in all senses of the word. Oh, just got my puppies just playing around underneath me. Sorry for that noise. And they have come on as a shareholding within the business. It's really a mutually beneficial relationship because they want to grow their operations and their capability in New Zealand. They're a business that we really aspire to be like. We're very aligned culturally. And so that's really fast forwarded, any intention I had around, bringing over other parties to the mix. I spoke at the very start about one of the rationales for me wanting to start my own business was really around, there was autonomy, which was a big issue for me, or something that I wanted to solve. And so being privately owned for those first 13 years was really important to me. Of course, things have changed now. We always knew we wanted to bring a capital partner on in the future, but it just really sort of fast forwarded those discussions. And so that's something we've done differently. So, working as part of a much bigger organization, still keeping our identity. There's no change to who we are in the marketplace and how we look and feel and how we're presenting ourselves. It just means now actually we're part of a bigger family of businesses that can take the world by storm once things normalise post-COVID.
So could you give our audience a bit of an overview of what Haka Tours all is? Because you mentioned there was 8 different sort of elements.
Totally. So we are a vertically integrated set of tourism businesses, and so for that it means having niche touring brands vertically integrated with accommodation. And so the core brands that we've got is Haka Tours, which is small group, adventure, snow and private tours of New Zealand. The second brand is we've got ANZ Nature Tours, which is a another small group touring company, but really targeted Germanic-speaking countries in Europe. The third touring brand we've got is Haka Educational Tours, which runs really high-end experiential trips for schools and universities globally. So we operate primarily within 10 countries across the world with that brand. And then we've got a small niche touring business called NZ Snow Tours. And then we've integrated that with accommodation across New Zealand. So Haka Lodges and Haka Hotels, and they're essentially hybrid accommodation properties, which we've opened up along the tour route around New Zealand. And when we talk about hybrid accommodation properties, it's kind of a really high-end hostel mixed with a hotel. So we've got really nice private rooms, but then we've also got dorm share. It's really looking to bridge the gap for people like myself that don't want to stay in a really homogenous hotel, happy to pay a bit more than what our traditional backpackers would pay, but looking for a bit more luxury. So that's essentially who we are, vertically integrated tourism businesses, across touring and accommodation.
Amazing. Was that always the intention, or was it so in 2007? Sorry, when you started, you wanted to be Haka Tours. Did you ever envision it to be where it is now, or is now way bigger than what you ever thought it was going to be?
No, I always had big ambitions. I've never had any. I've got lots of faults, but one fault isn't thinking blue sky and having big aspirations and a big, hairy, audacious goal. I've always dreamt big. So that hasn't changed. In terms of our business model, it's actually pretty close. We knew we wanted to launch other niche tourism brands. We knew that my reference point was always people want laser-targeted brands that are really specific to a particular market segment. So it wasn't about creating one single brand which was going to capture a very broad general audience. So even at that stage in 2006, 2007, I knew we would probably be releasing additional brands. But the significant play into accommodation in 2007 wasn't something that I thought we'd do. But quickly, in 2009, 2010, it quickly became part of our strategy. So not too long after, our journey, did I really identify that was part of what we wanted to do.
Awesome. So here's another question that I ask all of our guests, and you may have already sort of touched on who it would be, but what brand has had the biggest impact on you outside of Haka, and why?
Yeah, look, I've always looked at brands which I found hugely aspirational, and once again, drawing back to those 5 businesses that I was like, wow, I'd love to be like them. It was definitely Intrepid. I mean, they had a lot of the core values that I was looking to emulate, and as I mentioned before, for me, small group traveling, we've got more of an intimate setting. You get to know everyone firsthand, and was really key. And I knew when I had my best travel experiences, it was through that style of travel. So it'd probably be Intrepid, definitely. But across my business journey and entrepreneurial journey, there's definitely a lot of businesses out there where you're just, you're super inspired about, whether it's their approach to digital marketing or whether it's their innovation. But Intrepid has always been someone that has been really aspirational to us.
So based on the conversation you've had already, you sound like you've got a reasonably big team. Are they all based in New Zealand?
We did have a big team. We had over 210 staff prior to COVID. And then like every tourism business, we had to right-size a business. And so you were down to about just under 50 now. But really keeping those core competencies in-house and focusing on our internal systems and processes, but really ready to re-recruit a lot of the awesome people, unfortunately, we had to let go once those borders open.
So how do you communicate with your team? Like at the moment, specifically because now that you're sort of in the lockdown sort of space?
Yeah. To tell you the truth, it hasn't actually changed that much. The reason being is that, we've always been a nationwide business, because guided touring is such where, our most popular tours are 16, 24 days long. So those tour guides, you don't see them that often. You only see them when they come through on their through on their tour route. And then the same with us opening up lodges across the country. So in terms of the people that are there, even pre-COVID, the staff that I would see day in, day out in the office, it's probably only about 10%. So we've always been managing remote teams. It's always been part of our DNA. So we've always been big on Slack as our internal communication messaging tool, and Zoom. So that stuff that we were using pre-COVID is just, amplified even the use of Zoom even more. But that's always something we did on a daily basis. So I think from our point of view, it probably hasn't been that much of a change. I think for other businesses, yes, but because it's a remote business that we've had since day one, it's probably not as much of a step change for other businesses.
I could imagine in 2008, 2009, when there was Skype, I suppose there was probably there was no. I don't know what happened to Skype. They really did miss that opportunity the last 20 months. What other forms did you communicate with before there was like even this? Like I remember 1 gig of data a month used to be a lot. Now I use 15 gig on my phone alone, not alone in my house. So how did you communicate in 2009 and 8?
It was Skype.
Oh, it was
and
Skype.
it was. That was pretty much it. And Facebook chat groups. Setting up those group pages and chat groups and stuff. So it's always been online. It's always been virtual. When we launched in 2007, it was we've always been a digital first business. So even when we launched our business, we didn't have a phone line, so people weren't calling us. It was solely via email and through live chat. And so, we were pretty much early adopters of that. And the reason why, actually, there's a sneaky reason why I did that is because I was still working my corporate role and there's no one to pick up the phone anyway. So I could answer a few sneaky emails on the side when I'm at the corporate job. So even today, we're not a big phone business. The phone doesn't often ring. So, it's digital means as our primary mode of communication. So whether it's live chat, Slack or, Skype back in the day, and now a lot of Zoom. But the good old handy email.
So you've talked about a lot of the communication style apps or platforms. Are there any other digital tools that you, as an organization, really rate and think that they've really helped streamline your business?
Yeah, definitely. When we, I think, having a lot of remote staff, it's very difficult to, fully get the lay of the land on how everyone's feeling just via video or from email or Slack or just a standard phone call. So a bit of software that we really love is called Tiny Pulse, and it's a weekly staff engagement tool. The cool thing about it is it's totally anonymous. So when staff get the email every Wednesday, and it literally just takes 5 seconds to answer, it could be a question like, how happy are you at work? Can you rate it on a scale of 1 to 10? Actually, that question gets asked every 4 weeks, and you normalize it across how people are feeling across the year. It could be something along the lines of, when was the last time you got positive feedback from your manager? Name one thing we do to improve our business. And ultimately, because it's anonymous, you get really truthful data coming through. You can respond to those responses. So an employee might have given a 7 for 7 out of 10 in terms of how happy they are. We can respond back to that 7. We don't know what staff member that's going to, but they feel they can have an open two-way chat without divulging too much information. The real benefit that we've found is that it helps us deal with issues before they become issues. So it's a really great way to front foot something that could become a bigger issue later down the track. Because ultimately, people only raise stuff when they're sufficiently motivated to, and it's become enough of a problem. But if someone could air a slight gripe before it becomes anything bigger, it's a really good thing. But it's not all negative. One of the other things that we really like to facilitate as a company is that I don't think positive feedback should always be top down. I think anyone within the business, and we like to operate a fairly flat hierarchy, is that anyone should be able to, give someone else positive feedback, no matter what role, what team they're into. And Tiny Pulse has a really cool function called Cheers for Peers, and you can see a virtual high five to another team member, whether anonymously or you can attach your name to it and really thank them for something that they might have done. And the third thing that it does really cool, it curates all of your continuous improvement suggestions. So if you're working in the customer service department and you're always getting a particular issue popping up, you can log that on Tiny Pulse, and then it gets voted for basically providing your continuous improvement list of the things that you want to work on first in terms of making work a better, more efficient, place for everyone to work. So it's really cool. So Tiny Pulse, check it out.
Tiny Pulse, is it paid sort of option, or is it
a subscription option based on per employee?
That's awesome initiative, because those people who can answer something anonymously to not, like, you need to be quite courageous to be able to, or feel empowered to be able to talk to, whether it's your manager, that's the person, that's the issue, to talk to and then you sort of going over or around, and to be able to do that, it's really cool. And I can imagine that would be really, really helpful.
Yeah, it is. It's super powerful. And it's, yeah, I think the biggest thing that we found was the more that we communicated our performance and how we were rating against everything and being totally transparent, it just added to the authenticity of it. So, yeah, I thought it was really cool.
Are there any things that you wish you had done a long time ago that you're doing now?
I would say it's really important to balance your business. So making sure that you're spending equal time and effort, on your customers, your financials, your people, and your internal processes. I think if you plot out everything that you do and you categorize it by one of those four things, normally there's a bit of misalignment, or you're spending too much time on one or two quadrants versus the others. To have a well-performing, efficient, lean business, you need to be making sure that you're spending equal time looking after your people as much as you spend looking after your customers, as much as you spend time looking after your financials and looking after your internal systems and processes. So it's all about balancing your business. I think as entrepreneurs and business owners, you gravitate towards one or two of those quadrants because actually it's what you're good at, it's what you enjoy, or what gives you the most fulfillment. But the reality is, unless you've got a balanced business, you're not creating the best platform for your business to succeed. So yeah, I definitely focus on balancing my time and effort across those four.
So when you develop a process, how do you document that process? Is it done through some software, or is it just in Excel and then you give it to someone else to do?
Do you know what? I'm the typical entrepreneur where it's like, we'll just figure it out. So with anything, and the same if we're launching a new brand, we would launch it through a basic WordPress website, this whole well-known theme of getting data quick and failing fast. And so I think with a process, we would everything I've always done, organically refine it by just doing the process. And once it's got to the point of it feels like it's 80% correct, that's at the time when you get it documented, as opposed to spending too much time at the start theoretically trying to put it in place. So just run with it as best you can at the start in terms of a base process, but refine, get it to 80%, and then that's when you spend the time documenting it and improving it, just because things move too quickly when there's a new process at the start. I think it's really important for someone to own the process as well, whether it's implementing a new system or whatever. So it's not everyone just testing it out. It's one person really owning that part, or that new system or that new process, so they can actually, be the key person to provide feedback to, but really just to own it. Because I think when no one owns something, that's when you get into trouble.
When did you hire your first person that wasn't a driver or someone that actually had to physically move passengers from A to B?
That was an amazing day. There was a beautiful lady called Ellen Pickett, and I was in the UK, and she came on part-time doing marketing support. And then she finished up uni and she came and relocated to New Zealand to work full-time in the business as an account manager. But it was such a win to get that first person to come and help out in the business. So I wasn't answering every email and being on 24/7, because I was definitely working 80 plus hours a week for the first 3 years, definitely. And to get someone on to kind of share that workload so I could focus on more strategic aspects is absolutely brilliant. So big shout out to Ellen Pickett. I still keep in touch with her. She worked with us for many a year. She progressed into digital marketing, became our digital marketing manager. She's an absolute legend. And it's so important to find that right person, first of all. I think it's really important to get someone that's aligned to your values and can share the passion with you. No one's going to be as passionate about your business as you are. But if someone's got enough of that twinkle in their eye where they do find it really inspiring, I think really look for that. I think a lot of those skills and systems can be taught. But getting someone with the right alignment, right values alignment with you at the start to really share that journey and do the hard yards with you is so important. And for us, that was Alan.
So I'm trying to think, were you still in your parents' basement and you had an office,
I was,
or did you work remotely? Or
you know what, I was in. So this is how humble our beginnings were. So yeah, I'd moved back home, and my office was in my bedroom, and Alan would come to work and then come into my room and would work at a 2-desk area in the side of my room. It was so funny. So we ended up hiring this lady about 3 years after I actually had this meeting with her. But anyway, this sales manager came for a meeting to update us on all of their products. She worked for a big tourism company within New Zealand. She arranged a sales meeting with us, and I gave her where I was, my parents' address, and she came in and walked up the stairs, and we sat and had it in the bedroom. And I didn't think anything of it because
no, that's
I was
how
just
you rolled.
I was grinding it out. And yeah, anyway, I ended up hiring about 3 years later, and she told me about a week into the job, she goes, "Oh my God, you wouldn't believe it. I came at our sales meeting at you, and I was clearly at your parents' house in your bedroom, and your bedroom was in the corner." I said, "I've never had a meeting like that in all my life." She said, "As soon as I got off the meeting with you, I called up some of the staff that she was working with, a bit of a chuckle about it." But I really didn't have any, well, I still don't, I didn't have any shame in that or any.
Oh, no, not at all.
You know what I mean? I was just like, stuff it. I'm not going to spend money on an office and all these things that I can't afford. I'm going to live to the means that I've got. And yet we can have a sales meeting in the room I had as a kid. And my first place was fine.
Still have your Transformers on the wall and your Bond,
Yeah.
your Poison poster up. Hey, don't knock that poster. It's a good poster.
The Def Leppard was good for me. I liked the Def Leppard.
Hey, what was your marketing strategy from the start?
So direct to the consumer through digital means. It was, I just couldn't believe, not having worked in tourism before, just the commissions that you paid for wholesalers and travel agents. I was like, wow, there must be a better way to do this. So we just launched digital from day one, and we're still a digital first business. So the traditional travel agency and wholesaler network is definitely a valuable part of what we do, but it's 80% of what we do is digital for sure. So for us in 2007 and 2008, a lot of that was YouTube. And that was big. We ran a few video competitions on YouTube, which worked quite well.
Like user-generated video comps?
Oh, yes, nice. We did a big prize draw for 2 flights from the UK to New Zealand and 2 16-day tours. And we did a nationwide search of Britain's craziest student via YouTube. This is when Jackass was big and all that type of stuff. And so people had to submit videos of them doing crazy things. And that worked pretty well. That definitely got us some momentum. Toured around universities, put up signs and stuff at the student unions and at the student bars. And we got people kind of into the brand that way through submitting user-generated content.
So has the age demographic changed from when you originally started the brand to where it is now?
Mildly. We've always, our main market has always been time-poor professionals. So even though we were pitching at universities and everything like that, we were getting a lot of people in their mid to late 20s. So the age has crept up about 4 to 5 years since we started. So at the moment it is 31, traveling solo, time-poor professional. So we've stayed pretty true to people wanting to join a small group tour and meet other like-minded people, and they're traveling by themselves. So that's been pretty much our core market for our core brand, Haka Tours. Each of the brands has got different market segments, but in terms of our signature brand and what we're all about, time-poor professionals, 31.
So I'm going to make a huge assumption here that you'd use Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, maybe some LinkedIn, but maybe not. TikTok?
We've done a little bit. We find still the biggest returns for us are Facebook and Instagram. So and also just keyword targeting and SEO. So I mean, we are playing around with it. We've actually got a campaign which we're developing at the moment for TikTok, but bread and butter has been more of Insta and Facebook for sure.
Nice. So our audience is predominantly small business owners, entrepreneurs, or someone who may have a business idea like you did in 2007 and want to try and ideate that into reality. If they've got no marketing budget, what would you suggest they do?
The most important thing, we're awash, social media is awash with beautiful pictures and all of that type of stuff. It's all about creating value-added content, and that doesn't need to be shiny and beautiful. It can be compelling words on a blog and or a long form post. So I think value-added content is the best way. Yeah, it takes up your personal time, but you're not paying anything externally for it. So whatever niche that you're in, think about stuff that you might not have known about that niche previously before you started researching it, and think about actually what would your potential followers, fans, future customers want to know about, and think about writing blog posts or longer form posting content, because the old adage, content is king, and I think if you write the right copy, the right market will see it, and you can start gaining traction that way. I mean, that's the best way to find people that are aligned with what you're thinking for your brand or your company or the values that it's got. So writing content, I think, super powerful. Another way, a second way that we've done it with actually no cash is no upfront cash, is partnering up with bigger brands. So offering them a solution as to how you can piggyback on through their prepaid social media channels or their newsletters or anything like that. So ways that we've done that before is by offering up free tours as a prize for particular brands. We did a really big one with Heineken quite early on, which was great. We've done one with Boost Juice in Australia quite early on in our journey, and that didn't cost us anything up front, but we got massive exposure through their media channels, which was terrific. Didn't cost us a dime until we had to service that tour, which was fine. We'd already generated a lot of bookings and a lot of sales. So finding a brand that's aligned to you, that you think, there's enough of an intersection between their consumers and your consumers, and then proactively reaching out to their PR people or marketing people via LinkedIn and seeing if there's some way you can put together some form of competition, or accessing their database, but even just maybe exclusive discounts. There's also a lot of great closed Facebook groups. There might be one in the industry or the theme that you're thinking about that you can join, and there can be some form of soft sell marketing through that. But piggybacking on bigger brands has always been part of what we've done.
Facebook groups is huge now, and that's mainly how I absorb content on Facebook, unless it's my family or something like that, where I'm just all surfing or motorbiking, fishing. It's basically it.
And you've got to go searching for it, because it's not really apparent if you're just searching through your newsfeed or looking through your newsfeed and your friends. You'll be amazed what groups are out there that particularly are within your niche, and those are where all of your potential customers are hanging out. So definitely worth a look.
So what would be the best case scenario for Haka in the next sort of 5 years?
The border's opening this year, so we can get customers in the door, but actually rebuilding our culture within the next 12 months. Not that we still don't have a good culture, it's more the fact that, of course, it's going to take a battering when you have to let go of a huge chunk of your staff, and people aren't doing what they love day in, day out, and that's running tours and servicing guests. So it takes a toll. So the first year is to get the borders open, start running all of our products and services and tours again, bring back a lot of our wider haka whānau that we had to let go of, and rebuild what we were pre-COVID by end of 2023 would be nice. We have spent a lot of time with developing new tours and new services, and really driving our unique selling points as a business. It's not the right time to launch those right now, but being able to launch those in 2020 or next year, well, if you think it's 2022 next month, so probably 2023.
3 weeks.
3 weeks, definitely. So I would say in the short term, it's building back our team and the culture, releasing new products over the next 12 months, and building back to where we want to be, or where we were pre-COVID by 2023. For myself, now that we've partnered up with Intrepid, which I couldn't be more happy about, it's about making sure that we continue for that to be a really mutually beneficial relationship for both parties. And for us, that's about providing exceptional service to Intrepid around running their trips around New Zealand, branching out to Australia and Fiji, leveraging their sales network. They operate in about 100 countries around the world. So, leveraging those sales channels. They're B Corp certified, which is one of the world's most, pristine, sustainability certifications to get. So going through that process in the next 3 years will be a big achievement for us.
We did a podcast with Tim Jones, who's it was all about B Corp just a few weeks ago.
Awesome!
It's an amazing initiative and awesome, yeah.
Totally. So that journey is a big one. So I mean, it's going to take us 3 years to get that certification. So that's a good thing to focus on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and our guest last week, Justine Troy. So she was the founder of 42 Below Vodka. They're now down. Her and her husband are down in Hawaii, and they are going to be Corp certified farm.
Oh, awesome!
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's really cool. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And more businesses need to be taking on those certifications. It's so aspirational. It's a lot of work, but man, you're going to be on the right side of history getting that qualification for sure.
Yeah, so it's a little bit different to the TNZ. What's their gold? What's it called?
Qualmark.
Yeah, Qualmark.
Yeah. I mean, Qualmark's good, and it's a great kind of initial. It's definitely great. It's a step in the right direction, and just something like B Corp is just taking things to the next level, really.
Cool. So a couple more questions. The last one's sort of about business, and the next one's more about you. What would be your single most valuable piece of advice you'd give to a small business right now who's starting out?
I would say your competitor analysis is so important. The reason why it's important is because you want to define a clear niche within your marketplace. And so what you want to do is making sure that you understand every competitor in your landscape, their products, services that they offer, their price point, their target consumer, how they target their customer, whether it's digital, print, through trade channels, radio, just trying to glean as much information as you can, their customer rating score, whether it's through their Google business listing or awards they might have won or anything like that. But make that a really, really, really comprehensive document. And it's really important to review that every 6 months because things change quite rapidly. And once you've done that competitor analysis, really understand, right, within that ecosystem, where are you going to sit? And that's so important is because once you've defined that, you can define your unique selling points. And that educates your marketing and the messaging that you communicate to your potential consumers around why they should choose you. There's nothing worse than starting a business and actually there's 4, 5, 6 other people like you. You really want to make sure you've got that, that blue ocean space where the wording that you use and how you contextually place your business within the environment is clearly differentiated. And a lot of that comes from a really comprehensive competitor analysis. And there's nothing worse. You don't want to do that competitor analysis and just tuck it away. Make it a live document, have a printed version of it, a really clear place where you can see it in your office space or at your home or your spare bedroom like I was. And make sure you do review it because it really is your golden ticket in many ways. It just educates so much about your brand. I talked, as part of that, understanding the price point. There's a lot of people that just believe that whatever product or service that they're offering, cheaper is the better. But, that's far from the truth. So understanding where other products and other businesses are pricing themselves and really understand where you fit within that mix can be a real eye opener because you could compare yourself to 1 or 2 businesses and try and undercut them. But the reality is there could be some really cool ways where you could add value and have a higher price point and getting a much better margin for your business. So really dive deep into that competitor analysis. And then the second thing I would say was, look, being an entrepreneur is an emotional journey for me as much as it is a technical journey or a journey where I have to be learning new skills. I don't find the skill-based stuff that difficult. For me, what's most difficult but also most rewarding is the emotional journey that you go on. massive highs, big lows, everything in between. So what I would say is just get ready for the onslaught. It's all part of it. And don't let those down days be the days where you take your foot off the pedal too much and just not follow through for your dream. Lots of us have got great ideas. Lots of us have got great passion. But you need to have that stickability and to understand we're all going to have down days. You're all going to have days where you're like, why am I doing this? But just understand having that emotional roller coaster is all part of it. Keep your foot on the pedal. Even if you're only in first gear some days, it doesn't matter. Just make sure you're in a gear. You don't need to be flying at, fifth and fourth and third gear all the time. Just keep at it.
Incremental steps forward, still moving forward.
It's so important. Yeah.
So very last thing we're going to ask is more about you. What do you do? So what sort of content do you consume? Podcasts, social media, Facebook groups, reading, YouTube, Netflix? What is it? What's your sort of escapism?
I'm a massive reader. Yeah.
Oh, yeah?
And I can lie down in a beautiful place and read for 8 hours straight. And I read fighting fantasy.
Oh, yeah.
Like fantasy books, full on. Yeah. I love it. It's a total escape for me. And I've never watched a movie as good as the best book I've read or the best 20 books I've read. So for me, reading is definitely my escapism and just my happy place where I can just zone out and just get really lost in the pages of a good book. So yeah, I've just finished a series which I've been reading for the last couple of years by a great author called Robin Hobb, the Farseer trilogy. And yeah, those were like 1,000-page books, and there was like 10 of them, and just plowing into those, loved it. So I'll be looking for my next series. And then yeah, apart from that, I must say I can't get lost in TV and movies like I used to. I find I just kind of turn off. I'm really into crypto, so reading anything is something that I would do. So following all the news in crypto and what's happening in that space. So yeah, diving deep into crypto would be the second thing I'd do.
Nice. I had Janine Granger. She's a CEO and co-founder of Easy Crypto from New Zealand. Her and her brother set it up. She's cool.
Yeah,
it was
good. Crypto's fascinating.
Yeah.
So fascinating. Just the amount of real world applications a lot of the stuff's got. I used to think that crypto, you're just buying a coin and you're trading it like on the stock market. But yeah, there's stuff there that's going to be a real game changer for the world. Well, that's what I believe.
Yeah, and you never know that Haka could be an NFT, and that's the way that you're going to be selling some of your tours in the future. You never know, and it could be very true.
That's amazing. That's crazy. Yeah.
Hey Ryan, this has been awesome chat, man. I really do appreciate you being so honest and frank and open to the trials and tribulations that you've had through the Haka journey. So thank you so much for your time. I do appreciate it. I think you had a 3 o'clock meeting. It's 2:58. So
yeah, I better jump onto that one. There's no rest of the wicked, matey.
Fingers crossed that our international borders are reopened quicker than we anticipate, and so you're back where you were before 2023.
Cheers, buddy. And look, I want to go on some travel just for personal reasons too. So
Awesome, man. All right, thanks a lot. Have a good day.
You too, buddy. See you, mate.